let's get on to the main meat of this topic. I think first and foremost, let's talk about Lord of the Rings and its viewership falling, because it's been revealed, at least by one independent metric source, Nielsen, it shrank week on, week out. Tom, have you seen this?
Yeah, I did catch this, and I'm not surprised. I mean, we saw this happen in real time, right? Or at least quasi real time, as we were all keeping up with it, and no surprise.
But it's to be expected. I think this goes hand in hand with what everyone had been saying about it, right? Because everyone got lambasted as being racist and stuff like this, but it wasn't that. Everyone was just like, this thing is just boring. It's boring. And this just goes hand in hand with that. Like, it's just a sign that people watched it, because apparently, it had great viewership first episodes, and then week on, week out, it consistently lost viewers every single week. A 1% drop off. Oh no, 1% fewer minutes were streamed every consecutive week. So it was a consistent drop off every single week of viewers. It's just because it's boring. Absolutely boring. I mean, I know, Paulie, you didn't finish it, did you?
No, I did. It was a very falling asleep. I did, catch up. I didn't watch it every week. Just got so painful. But I did finally, finish it all, and it was just, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare watching. Absolutely silly. Absolutely stupid.
And, Tom, I guess you didn't finish it.
I watched 20 minutes of it and shut it off, and I've now.
Jesus. Yeah, it's saying a lot.
No, once I saw Elrond writing fucking poetry in the goddamn tree, I was done.
So Variety did this paywall report basically, and it's Nielsen. As part of it, Nielsen reports indicate that the show earned 1% fewer minutes streamed every consecutive week. Every consecutive week, with comparatively few viewers starting the show in the weeks after it premiered. The show also seemed to have its largest drop-off after its first 2 weeks, which showed a decline of around 20%. So this suggests that a good amount of viewers literally gave up on it after the first few. They were just like, "No, I'm done. This is absolute garbage." So Nielsen's metrics obviously only measure US viewership, which, fine, sure, but that's indicative of the entire globe. There are parts of the world that won't be interested in this in the slightest, because it's just not their sort of cultural thing, right? They're not going to be interested in this. But yeah, so the visible downward trend is notable in the trades analysis, which sees it as a problematic for the show's future growth. Now they say this, they talk about the 25 million viewers and things like that. But apparently now the numbers are going up, which is interesting, post-finale. So it seems like people were just like, I can't really be bothered to watch this week on, week out, but I'll watch it as it's all done and just see whether I am even interested in it. It seems like that's the case. But they talk about parrot analytics as well. Parrot analytics is allegedly something which is, it sort of looks at trends on social media to sort of calculate viewership. It doesn't actually look at viewership. I don't know if any of you guys know anything about this.
As far as it going by minutes and not actual viewers, is that what you mean?
Well, what parrot analytics is apparently.
Parrot analytics is just a bunch of horse shit.
Period. Yeah, it's
they just put
hashtags.
They put out whatever the fuck you want. Yeah, you pay them and then they tell you back what you want them to.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I led to believe that was.
Hot take.
Hot take. So it's a certified bomb, and I labeled this stream. The Rings of Power is arguably the biggest failure of all time, and it's not. It's not hyperbole. I think it genuinely is, because I don't think a company has sunk this much money into something without actually having the potential to earn it back. In terms of box office receipts. You know, I can accept that a company would do this on box, you know, to release in theaters, but this is just on a subscription service. So could this be? I mean, I say it is arguably the biggest failure of all time because I think it is financially. It is arguably one of the biggest failures of all time. I don't know if any of you guys have anything to say about that, but I think that's true.
I mean, I don't know if there's any real way to like gauge it mathematically, since it hasn't come out in theaters. But I mean, if you go by the amount of money they spent on it compared to the quote unquote return Amazon got from it, oh yeah, it's a huge failure. Because basically these shows and movies on these streaming services are there to bring new eyeballs. They don't give a fuck if you watch it if you're already subscribed to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's kind of why we did our video about Cobra Kai not getting a green light yet for season 6, even though people are like, what are you talking about? I thought it was. It's like, no, they're ready for season 6. Netflix technically hasn't greenlit it, and they're like, well, that's dumb because it's a hit show. It's like, yeah, it's a hit show, but evidently this last season probably didn't bring in any new eyeballs. So it's to them not worth any more money to sink into that. People are already watching it. So, sure, it's keeping some retainership on there, but there's enough. They're more worried about new eyeballs. And yes, part of it is retainership, but one show is not going to usually make or break the entire streaming service, right? So,
yeah, it's not a tentpole. Well, I guess it could be argued as almost a tentpole property for them, isn't it? Really?
It is, but it's not something where if they don't do a season 6, that it's going to really
that's true,
cause a problem, I think, overall. And that's just my opinion on it. But again, we have enough proof that goes to show that this is how they do things, right? So
yeah, no, you're not wrong. And then to go hand in hand with the viewing figures, we now we now have we had the commentary about the showrunners essentially taking a step back, being demoted, which we saw that in real time on one of these streams. We saw that one or two of the Amazon was doing a reshuffle basically of executives and things, but apparently they're going to delay the demotion of the showrunners to avoid sinking the first season's Emmy odds. Which I think is just absolutely hilarious. But they were never going to do it publicly anyway. But I guess, I mean, how would this impact their... How would demoting them impact their Emmy odds? I don't think it would it? Realistically. Does that impact it in any way, Tom?
The only reason is, here's the thing. Like, I can see where the mentality of this is coming from, but
you talk about purely just optics.
Yeah. But as far as them winning or losing any Emmys over the show, like, I will say there's a basis for this, because I don't know what you've heard about it, but we've heard from a couple places that part of this show exists just for prestige, right? They knew if they did something like this, they'd probably get a buttload of Emmys. And so there can be an Emmy nominated or Emmy winning show. And Paulie might actually be able to speak to this part a little bit more than I could. Because he's kind of more, he knows more a bit
briefly.
Oh, of course he does. Because of course he knows a little bit more about the glam side of this stuff. But that's kind of what it is. It's more of a prestige bragging rights kind of thing. But it's like, how much is that really
so
worth?
It's almost like a loss leader for Emmys,
And I mean, this does come from Chris Gore, and I trust Chris. And he said it on our live stream.
Yeah, but this is what the articles here,
referring
right?
to, And so in that sense, I'm sure that there's something behind that as far as like them delaying any changes to the show. But we're not even going to get another version of the show for 2 years. So what is demotion? I don't get what they mean by demotion in the title.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I would imagine, I mean, what's a demotion these days? Like, especially in something with respect to Amazon and just the film industry in general, demotions are normally promotions. It's very rare that people get demotions properly nowadays. 9 times out of 10, everyone just fails up. It's just a massive circle jerk when no one wants to be held accountable properly.